thinking about applying for a U.S. visa, that interview part, well, it can feel pretty intense, can it? It's totally understandable to feel a bit on edge.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's often a lot riding on it for people. The big trip, family visit.
Exactly. And that's really why we wanted to dive deep today. We've heard from quite a few of you, so we're focusing on the U.S. B2 tourist visa interview specifically. Our aim here is just to unpack what's really important, maybe give you some practical insights so you feel, well, a bit more prepared going in.
Yeah, and we've got some good stuff to work with. We'll be looking at a sample dialogue, like a mock interview between a visa officer and an applicant.
Okay.
And the officer's main job, remember, is figuring out if the applicant actually plans to return home. We'll also break down some key vocabulary, look at questions you're likely to hear.
And how the whole application process kind of leads up to that interview moment.
Right. We'll connect those dots.
Yeah, perfect. We want to, cut through some of the confusion and just give you the stuff you really need. Okay, so let's start with that interview dialogue.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's a B2 visa interview. You've got the visa officer, you've got the applicant. And interestingly, in the source material, the applicant has an accent.
Oh, that's actually great for us listening, isn't it? Good practice for understanding different ways people speak English.
Exactly. Good point. So the interview kicks off, pretty standard, with the officer asking, where's your final destination and what's the purpose of your trip to the United States? Very direct.
Right, and the applicant's answer is nice and clear. Going to Minneapolis to visit his brother, who's just had a baby. Seems straightforward.
It does. Then the officer follows up on, the duration. How long do you plan to remain in the United States?
And the applicant says about 3 weeks. And importantly, he actually shows a return ticket dated March 26th.
Yeah, showing that ticket up front, that suggests planning, doesn't it? A clear intention to leave.
Definitely implies he's got his return sorted. Okay, then the officer asks about money, basically. Who's sponsoring your trip?
And the applicant says his brother is sponsoring him. He even has an invitation letter from the brother.
Right, and he adds he'll be staying with his brother's family, which also ties into the visit's purpose.
Okay, now we get to what many people feel is like the absolute core of the interview, the question about ties.
Ah, yes. Tell me about the ties you have to your home country.
Exactly. This is really where the officer's trying to understand, okay, what's pulling this person back home? What guarantees or suggests they won't just stay?
So in the dialogue, what does the applicant say?
He mentions owning a house, which is pretty significant. He also says his neighbors are looking after his dog, a small detail, but it shows responsibility back home.
Okay, a house, a dog, what else?
He mentions having a car there, and crucially, his job. He's an engineer at a company called Turnell, and he specifically points out he only gets 3 weeks of vacation.
Ah, so connecting the trip length directly to his work leave. That's smart. He's covering quite a few bases there. Property, personal responsibilities, employment.
Yeah, paints a picture of a settled life back home. Now, you asked earlier about whether some ties are stronger than others.
Right. Is owning a house seen as like a stronger tie than having a dog looked after?
Generally, yes. Things that are harder to just walk away from usually carry more weight. So, significant property, a stable job you've held for a while, immediate family staying behind, those tend to be viewed as stronger anchors.
That makes total sense. So after the ties question, the officer then asks about the applicant's own finances. What evidence do you have that you are financially independent, even though his brother is sponsoring?
Right, they still want to see his personal financial situation. So he mentions the house again, but also presents a bank statement.
Showing savings or investment.
Exactly, showing investments and his bank balance, providing that tangible proof.
Okay, so honestly, this applicant sounds like he's doing everything right. He's got clear answers, evidence.
He does. He seems very well prepared. But then comes this totally unexpected twist in the dialogue.
Yeah, the officer says they can't grant the B2 tourist visa.
But instead, they're giving him a resident visa because he's the millionth applicant.
Which, I mean, is fun for the story, but let's be clear, incredibly unlikely, right?
Oh, completely unrealistic, as the source itself says. It's entertaining, but absolutely not how things work at a real consulate. Still, the rest of the dialogue gave us a lot to talk about.
Definitely. So maybe that's a good point to pivot to the language used. Some key vocabulary came up.
Good idea. Let's start with visa itself. The material makes a point of saying it's not a credit card.
Huh, yeah, good clarification. It's that official stamp or document in your passport, the one that gives you legal permission to enter a specific country for a specific purpose.
Exactly. And we were focused on the B2 visa, which is for tourism, visiting family, that sort of thing in the U.S.
But there are other types, like resident visas, which let you live somewhere.
Right, and those can be temporary, like the F1 for students or the J1 for exchange visitors, or they can be permanent, like a green card. Knowing the difference is important.
Definitely. Okay, next term. Sponsoring. The applicant's brother was sponsoring him. What does that actually mean in this context?
To sponsor basically means you're taking financial responsibility for the visitor. You're assuring the government that this person won't run out of money and need public assistance, like parents sponsoring a student child's trip.
Got it. And tied to that was the invitation letter.
Yeah, the invitation letter is usually a formal-ish letter from someone in the destination country, a friend, relative, maybe a business contact, inviting you to visit for a clear reason. It helps support the application.
Useful document to have. Okay, now the big one. Ties. We keep coming back to this.
We do, because it's so central. Ties are all those connections, those anchors that bind you to your home country and signal you will return.
Things like your house, your job, family members who aren't traveling with you, bank accounts back home. The source used a rope analogy, which is quite good, like things holding you there.
Yeah, it's a good visual. And the examples given were things like, selling your house would weaken your ties, or the ties of family life being a strong reason to return. Even diplomatic ties between countries show connection.
Makes sense. Then there was financially independent.
Right. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Having enough of your own money to pay for your trip without needing help.
Even if someone else is sponsoring, showing your own independence is still good.
Exactly. And that relates closely to assets.
So assets are just valuable things you own back home.
Yep. Your house, car, maybe stocks, significant savings, investments, things that show you have financial stability and something valuable to return to.
Okay. And the last word was grant.
Yes. To grant a visa simply means the government officially approves your application and gives you permission to enter. Hopefully through the normal process, not the millionth applicant lottery.
Huh. Right. Okay, understanding the vocabulary definitely helps frame the interview. So let's look again at those specific questions the officer asked. The source highlighted 3 key ones.
The first one we heard right at the start. Where is your final destination, and what is the purpose of your trip to the United States?
And the advice here seems to be specific and be honest. Say the city and state, explain clearly why you're going vacation, visiting Uncle Bob, a specific conference.
Absolutely. Truthfulness throughout is critical. Then the second key question, how long do you plan to remain in the United States?
Seems simple, but the crucial thing here is making sure your answer matches what you put on your application form, right?
Exactly. Consistency is key. If you wrote 2 weeks on the form, but say a month in the interview, that immediately raises a red flag for the officer. They'll wonder why the story changed.
Good point. You want everything to line up. Okay, and then the third one, the one we keep saying is vital. Tell me about the ties you have to your home country.
This is it. This is the make or break question for many people. The officer needs to be convinced you have strong, credible reasons to go back home after your visit. They're assessing the risk of you overstaying.
And this is where bringing evidence, even if they don't explicitly ask to see it, can be really helpful, like bank statements, proof of property ownership, maybe a letter from your employer confirming your job, and leave dates.
Precisely. Having those documents ready shows you're prepared, you're serious, and you have tangible proof of your ties. It can really bolster your case. Better to have them and not need them.
Than to need them and not have them. Classic advice. Okay, so how does all this interview prep fit into the bigger picture, like the step-by-step application guide mentioned in our source?
Well, it connects directly. The guide starts with step 1. Determine the type of visa you need.
Which, for our focus today, was the B2 tourist visa.
Right. Then step 2 is check the requirements. Knowing what documents and information are required before you apply helps you anticipate what the visa officer might care about or ask about during the interview.
That makes sense. Preparation starts early. Then step 3, complete the application form accurately.
And we just talked about how vital this is. Your interview answers need to match that form. Consistency builds credibility. Any discrepancies can cause problems.
Totally. Step 4 is gather supporting documents.
Which loops right back to our discussion about having evidence of your ties and financial stability ready for the interview. It's all part of building your case.
And then finally, step 5 is attend the visa interview. And the guide had some direct advice for that moment.
It did. It really emphasized being honest and confident, answer truthfully, speak clearly, and it reiterated those common questions to be ready for.
Like, why do you want to visit? How long will you stay? And of course, do you have ties? Being ready for those is half the battle.
It really is. Thinking through your genuine answers beforehand makes a huge difference.
So wrapping this up, we've really unpacked quite a bit about the US B2 visa interview. We looked through that sample dialogue,
Picked apart the key vocabulary.
analyzed those crucial questions you're likely to face, and tried to connect it all back to the overall application process.
And yeah, while that millionth applicant ending was definitely a curveball.
A very unrealistic curveball.
Right. But the core principles discussed in that dialogue, especially proving your ties back home, that's the real takeaway for almost everyone going through this.
Absolutely. So maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Thinking about all the different kinds of ties we discussed, your job, your family, property, finances, even community involvement. What do you think would be the strongest, most convincing evidence you could personally show to demonstrate your solid intention to return home?
That's a great question. It forces you to think practically about your own situation. What documents do you have? What parts of your life really anchor you to your home country?
Definitely worth reflecting on, maybe even doing a little research based on your specific circumstances.
Yeah. And as always, if you have experiences you want to share or more questions that came up listening to this, please do reach out. We always appreciate hearing from you.